That was good. My name's Danny. I'm an alcoholic. And I've had the gift of sobriety since February the 18th of 81. You got to fix it? Why are you moving if you don't have to fix it? Do I need to start over? I don't know what I was doing. My name's Danny. I'm still an alcoholic. And I'm happy to be here. I really am. I always, whenever I'm asked, I'm always excited, and I say yes, and then when it's time to do it, it's like, I don't want to go. I always want to be invited, but I never want to go. You know, that's just the way I was built. But I do, finally I got enough sense to write it all down, my whole story. I'll just read it to you. Now, I want to thank the committee. I really, listen, there's a lot of work that goes into one of these. And having participated in that process a couple of times, my hat's off to you. Thank you so much for all that you do for Alcoholics Anonymous. However, I've been off sugar for almost 2 years until I got here. And I immediately took that bag back to my room and I emptied it. I didn't do any writing. I had a little tablet. I haven't done anything with that, but the sugar's gone. And Lee, everybody remembered to thank Lee. I never remembered to, but Lee, thank you. He does do a lot. I mean, the guy's everywhere all the time, and he works his butt off. And I love him dearly. He's a great AA, and he's a great speaker himself, by the way. I've already talked about the gift basket. Nothing left there. You could make them bigger. I will say that. Ed and I think, were in Tampa together not too long ago, and I enjoyed him then. He was great, but he was inspired this morning. That was not something, I don't even think he could make that talk again. That was amazing, and thank you for that. And Lisa's animated. Did you watch her up here? Man, what a great talk, what a great message. Thank you. And Larcene, I could listen to you 57 times, and I could do it again right now. You rock. And and Deb, I want you to know that I made my flight for the afternoon so I could listen to your whole talk. So Deb is wonderful, so I wouldn't miss that. And then there's me. Like my friend once said in a conference I was at, Steve Lee, me, and Howard Polans were talking together, and Steve and I talked, and then Howard got up and he said, those two young men who just spoke gave the best talks of their lives. And he said, my talk won't be that good, but it will be longer. And that's kind of the way I feel right now, you know. Mine won't be that good, but it'll be longer. Y'all made me go through well, I'm not going to say that. I have to keep up with the time. So you start late here, by the way. I usually tell a joke because it relaxes me, and I have one joke. I've never told another joke because I don't remember jokes very well. But this one, I'm like excellent at telling it. But tonight I'm not going to tell it. Oh, you talked me into it. So a lady walks into a pharmacy. She walks into the pharmacy and she looks at the pharmacist and said, I'd like to buy some arsenic. He said, what for? She said, I'm going to kill my husband. He said, ma'am, you can't walk in here and say something like that. They'd put us both in jail. So she reached into her purse and pulled out a picture of his wife and her husband in bed together. And handed it to him. He said, now that's different. I didn't know you had a prescription. Another thing I've been thinking about, which you'll just have, I've got the microphone, so you'll just have to go with it. But I remember sitting on a bench in front of Northland Group in Austin, Texas, and sometime in the summer of 1980, and I have a Hazelton workbook. I have several different ways to work a fourth step. Now, I haven't quit drinking, but I've got all this information. And because I'm a quick study, I've already been in AA since 1979. I came into Alcoholics Anonymous in Midland, Texas in the fall of 1979. I call that my been around date. Because you know how you are when you stay sober and you go to a lot of AA meetings, but it's stressful and you have to take the weekend off. And you keep showing up, and you feel like kind of a member. You know all the prayers. You know who the big players are. You already know that when they pass the basket, they used to say, if it comes around, put $1 in if you have it. If you don't, take one out. And they stopped that in the group I was in. So I knew how to do AA, and you come back after, you feel horrible anyway. You come back, going to get another white chip. And, somebody'd say something smart to you like, well, how long have you been sober this time? Well, you just want to kick him. And, say, well, I've been sober, 27 days, but I've been around since October. I didn't want you to think just because I was drinking, I didn't know what we were doing here. But I had left, and I may be all over the place, but I'm going to tell you this story because this guy, I loved Shep Grennan, who's long since passed away. And he came up and sat down next to me. He had been a flying tiger. He'd flown for General Sinault, and he had been sober quite a long time. And he came up and sat down next to me, and he said, "I'd like to tell you a story." I said, "Well, I guess I'd like to hear it." He said, "There was a turtle caught in a wagon rut, heading for the water. And it'd been in there for quite a while, and it was starting to get thirsty and hungry. He couldn't get out of the wagon rut, and he kept crawling along looking for a place to get out, and he's freaking out. So he starts screaming for help. And here comes a little forest creature, a rabbit. And the rabbit comes over and said, "What's the problem?" He said, I'm going to die in here. I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, I can't get out." And the rabbit said, "I'll help you." And they worked and worked, couldn't get out. Rabbit said, "Don't crawl any further down this rut. Stay right here. I'll go get some friends from the forest. We'll get you out." When the rabbit came back with several other animals, the turtle was out of the rut and headed for the water. He said, "How'd you get out of that rut?" And he said, "I thought I heard a wagon coming." That's what you have in Alcoholics Anonymous. Eventually, you hear a wagon coming, you'll get willing to do something. When I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I was 34 years old. I was in Midland, Texas. I'd been in the military. I'd been in jail in Mexico. I'd been married several times. I think 4. 2 at one time, which is very stressful. I had been in the mental institution twice, and I'd been in prison twice. I was, at that time, I was married to my 4th wife, and things were not going well. She was a bartender, and so I would stay up with her till, she was not a faithful woman. She had a boyfriend, so I had to guard her all the time. And I couldn't work, and things went downhill. And then back then, you could just go and write a check. Go to somewhere. They'd have checks, blank checks. You could just fill one out and give it to them, and they'd give you money. It was a great plan. I had them out all over town, and they had repossessed my truck, and so I stole a car. It was a terrible car. The guy didn't even want it back. And I was wearing an eye patch. There was nothing wrong with my eye. I just thought I looked like really mysterious, like sort of a tragic figure. And I had hepatitis. I'd just gotten out of the hospital. We were drunk that morning. My wife and I are riding around in her car having a family meeting, passing a bottle back and forth. And she stopped in front of this nondescript looking building in Midland, Texas, and just kicked me out of the car. And I was too weak to resist, so I get out, she drives off. I think it's an oil company, I don't know. And I walk up there to see if I can use the phone to call a friend to save my marriage. And I looked in there, and there were some people over in the corner, and they were playing cards, smoking, drinking coffee, and when they saw me, they were very happy to see me. And I kept trying to ask if I could use the phone, and they would say things to me like, if you don't drink, you won't get drunk. And I thought, well, I think you're right. I'm not sure where you're going with that. I just wanted to use the phone. And, and they offer you orange juice and honey, want to know when get very personal. When was your last drink? What do you drink? How much do you drink? It's like, I don't really want to talk about all that. I just need to use the phone. They told me if I would stay for a meeting, that they would give me a ride afterwards. So I said, well, sure. And they told me the meeting was only an hour long, but it didn't feel like that. Back then, they didn't have discussion meetings. Everybody sat out there like this, and they would call on different people to come up to the podium and share. And the worse the story was, the better you liked it. And it was in the smoking era of Alcoholics Anonymous. And, just that room is just from here up is just smoke. And when that meeting was over, everybody joined hands and said the Lord's Prayer, and when they were through, that place just erupted into laughter. Everybody talking at the same time. And while I'm sitting there, that thing that's been happening to me since I could possibly remember had started again. And I'm nervous, and I get this tightness in my gut, and my head starts racing, and I start saying to myself over and over and over, I got to go. I can't stay here. I got to go. My foot's patting, and I got to get out of here. I don't belong here, and I need a drink. And so I'm trying to back out the back door, and that place parted like the Red Sea, and here come this little dour-looking fellow with a young guy with him heading for me. I saw him coming, and I thought, oh, hell no, I ain't going anywhere with him. He walked up to me, and he said, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. We're going to Baskin-Robbins for ice cream. Would you like to go? And I thought, Baskin-Robbins for ice cream, be still my beating heart. There is no way on God's green earth I'm going out with a bunch of geriatrics for ice cream. While my wife is out with her boyfriend. That ain't happening. But what I said was, sure, I'd love to go. So I wound up over at Baskin-Robbins holding a melting Rocky Road ice cream while they tried to pitch me on Alcoholics Anonymous. You ask them point blank, and I'm get to the point kind of a guy. I don't want your whole story. I don't want to read your big book. I just want to know a couple of quick answers because I'm a very busy man. I don't live anywhere. I don't have anything. I can't get there on time, and I have to leave early. And that's the way it is. And when you notice that when you come to Alcoholics Anonymous, you ask a new guy, so where do you live? I'm staying over at Bob's. New people don't live places; they stay places. Couched, yeah. But these guys tried to pitch me on AA. I'd ask them if I was alcoholic, and they'd start talking about them things. I think, I'm not interested in your story. I just wondered if you thought I was. And he said, well, we don't know. But sure looked like one. And so I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous in Midland, Texas, and my life is pretty tense. I've got hot checks out everywhere. I'm on parole. I haven't reported to my parole officer in a long time because, I didn't have anything good to report. And I don't like to disappoint. So, and I got hot checks out. I'm in a stolen car. My wife's got a boyfriend. I've got hepatitis, and now I show up with a bunch of weird people. And it just seems like it's kind of going downhill. And I know that I'm really close to going back to the prison to finish a 10-year sentence. So I went on the run. I wound up in Austin, Texas, and man, I walked into Austin, Texas. I walked into Northland, and I met John Henry, my sponsor. And I'll never forget the first time he ever looked at me, talked to me. I looked like hell, and I felt that way, and I was angry, and I was not the guy you wanted to hang around with. I was the guy that stole out of the basket, that hit on the girls, that made smart comments about everything that everybody was doing. You know, just not a pleasant person. And when he saw me, he said, "Come on in this house." It changed my life. Now, I didn't quit drinking right away. I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, I'm showing up. But I can't quit drinking because one is I don't have alcoholism. See, you're the person, you quit drinking, and the way I saw it, you quit drinking, get a good job, get a good wife, and your life gets better. I quit drinking and I go to hell in a handbasket and quick. And I don't know how to tell you. You don't understand, and you don't seem to be able to tell me. It's like Larcene says, you can't talk to us because I can't hear. I want to tell you a few things about my history, how I got there. My mom and dad were married on Valentine's Day, 1944. My mother was 14, and my dad was 19. I was born a year later. My dad went to the Second World War. He went out and fought in the Pacific at the Battle of Okinawa. Came back, he was pretty twisted up. But he would drink, and he was a happy drunk. He had a lot of fun. He would take me, we lived in South Texas, and he'd take me with him to those bars. I liked going down there. Get to play the jukebox, and they'd give me a little bit of beer, you know. It was fun. My dad I just loved him. I mean, he was a big, strong, handsome guy. My mom was not happy at all. I mean, she's sitting home and watching her son and her husband go out to the bar every night. He's coming in at all hours of the night with me. And finally she said, you know, you straighten up and quit, or I'm going to take Danny and leave. And my dad didn't want to lose his family, so he put the plug in the jug. And, I mean, things changed. I had a memory of being in the backyard with my dad, him drinking those old long neck beers and listening to country music, and holding me to his bare chest and patting my head, and me feeling on a visceral level, nothing can harm me. I'm with my dad, and everything is right in my world. He quit drinking, and almost overnight, he was this angry man that was screaming at everybody, mad at everything, and everybody just retreated into their corners. And I have younger brothers, but they're much younger, so I pretty much grew up on my own. By the time I got to middle school, I was pretty twisted up. I go in there one day, and they played a film called Duck and Cover. That's where that's where they teach you what to do in case a nuclear bomb goes off in your neighborhood. You know, you get a big book and go and get under your desk, and you know, I watched the film and I knew that was woefully inadequate. And I had a meltdown. I'm like 13 and a half, 14 years old, and I started running away from home. My folks didn't know what to do. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm different. I don't fit in anywhere. I can't learn. I can't be a part of. I just want to go. I got to go. It's been on I don't know even where we're going, and when we get there, what do we do? But I can't be here. And they sent me over and put me in Big Spring State Hospital. I stayed there for 90 days. I came back with my little bottle of psychotropic drugs, which I wouldn't take. And, I hadn't had a drink. One day I stole my mother's car, and I drove down to a restaurant where all the cool people hang out. And I drive down there, and I'm dressed up like they are. You know, I knew what the uniform was. I'm dressed up like that. I borrowed some of my dad's cigarettes. I didn't smoke, but I had them rolled up in my sleeves like we used to do. But I got real skinny arms. My cigarettes keep unrolling. And the car is like this boat. It's this big 56 Ford station wagon, and it just bounces when it goes. I just don't feel it. I'm not fitting in. I get down there, and one of the guys that was there, I was going to leave, and one of the guys there said, "Hey, man, what's up?" And he gave me a drink. And I smoked a cigarette, and I had another drink. And all of a sudden, I had this thing happen where I just calmed down, and I was able to talk and dance and have fun. And it was the most amazing evening of my life. I mean, there was just never been anything like it. I remember it clearly. A few things did go wrong that night. I wrecked my mother's car. I got my nose broke. I puked on myself, and I went to juvenile detention. But outside of that, it was a really great evening. And I knew that I would drink again. And I knew then that the problem was who I was drinking with. They were too rowdy. I wouldn't be like that. My folks decided I got out of the mental institution a little early. They sent me back. I immediately escaped. They caught me and brought me back and said, "If you leave again, we'll give you shock treatments," and punitively, and they would. So I'm minding my own business, and we're walking from the where we lived, whatever we called it, and we're going over to the cafeteria. And as we're walking along, I've got two friends that I've made down there. They're both getting shock treatments. They're from my hometown, and this is my new buddies. And as we're walking along, here is a car with the keys in it, and it's unlocked. I mean, is that odd or is that God? So I grab these two guys, we jump in the car, and we take off, and we head to Midland, which is 37 miles away, and we pick up three more guys who should have been in that hospital. And this is really this is a very heady experience. This is like my first gang. I'm their leader, and the police are looking for us. The hospital is. Our folks are. We're in a stolen car. It doesn't get much better than this. And I have a plan. We're going to Mexico. That's going to solve everything. I'm the guy that will shoot arrows into the wall and then go paint bullseyes around them and congratulate myself on being a good shot. I believe everything I think. And so I'm heading south. I got these guys with me. We have no money, so we siphon gas. We go in and create a diversion and get food and booze and creating a diversion when you're escaped mental patients is no problem. But as we're going along, those two guys that I brought from the hospital, their meds began to wear off, and it became clear they were in that hospital for a reason. Every time we stopped, gathering my gang back up and getting them in the car was a big challenge. We finally got across the border into Mexico, and I sold that car to a taxi driver for a few hundred pesos, which I thought was a lot of money. And we go over to Boys Town, and we're in the Cadillac bar in Villacuña, Mexico, and we're having a drink, and all of a sudden there's this big commotion, and one of the guys I brought with me had some kind of psychotic break, and he killed a parrot that belonged to a girl that worked down there. And oh hell, it's a big fight started. And here comes the federales and the local police. I grabbed these guys and said, "We got to get back to Texas." We ran for the international border, and they caught us on the Mexican side, and we went to jail in Mexico. That's what I said. In the doctor's opinion, it says that the alcoholic's problem piles up on him and becomes astonishingly difficult to solve. Well, this was one of those instances that bore that truth out, because I'm not bilingual, and I don't know how to tell these people I want my mother. So I'm locked up for some time. She does eventually find me. She gets me out, brings me back, leaves everybody else there because she thought they were a bad influence on me. And all the way back from Mexico, from Villacuña to Midland, Texas, we're riding in that car. She's searching for Mexican music on that AM radio, and she finds it and turns it all the way up, and it's just blaring. And then she quotes scripture to me, and I think it was her attempt at aversion therapy. It worked, because I still hate that music. we got home, and my folks had a little quick meeting, and my dad said, make him join the Navy. He's going to turn 17 next month. He said they'll make a man out of him. I wanted to tell my dad, I'm an escaped mental patient. But apparently the Navy had very low standards. And the day I turned 17, I was sworn into the United States Navy and became a CB. And I loved being in the military. For the first time, I've got the same uniform. I know we march all the same. We do all the stuff the same. I like being here. I grew big and strong. I'm a two-fisted drinker. Our motto was we fight and we build. And boy, I fit in perfectly. Because I like to fight, I like to build stuff, and I like to drink hard, and so do they. And I'm having a good time. We're island hopping in the Pacific. But all of a sudden, I'm starting to have these really bad things happen, like I'm blacking out. Now, I don't know I'm blacking out. I just know that the night's over and everybody else is gone, and I'm somewhere entirely different than we started out. And I also know that we go out sometimes, and sometimes I'm happy when I drink, and sometimes I cry when I'm drinking. Sometimes I don't want to be around anybody, and I don't understand that, and I feel different. And so I quit drinking with people and I back away. I don't feel like I'm a part of it anymore. Just right back to the same thing I always do. I got to go. I'm on a little island. I can't get out of here. I don't know what to do. And I drink. And I quit drinking. I quit drinking beer, and I started trying to drink everything. I tried tequila, which is absolutely a bad idea. But I'm changing everything. I'm changing the times I drink. I try to time it. I tried everything. But it's not working. I'm 19 years old. And I was in Guam, and I got drunk with some British sailors. And I don't know how this happened because I blacked out, but apparently they were able to smuggle me onto their ship. And when I came to, they were steaming out of port. And so this is a big problem. So they what they do on these ships when they leave port, they have everybody out to muster, and they had too many sailors. And it was pretty clear who wasn't British. And of course they send a launch out. The shore patrol comes out, gets me, brings me back in, and I'm absolutely humiliated. I didn't set out to do that. I was going to, once I got in the Navy and I got started, I'm going to make a career out of this. I'm going to make my old man proud. I found something I can do, and I'm going to be good at it. And it was my dream, and I couldn't stay. I got back to the States. I go out for drinks every night. Wind up in Los Angeles, and never supposed to go where it's supposed to be at Port Hueneme. I finally go AWOL, go to Midland. They catch me. They bring me back. And when I'm coming back, I attempted suicide. I don't know if I was serious or not. I know my life was absolutely miserable. And they did a little investigating and found that they'd made a very bad choice, that they had an escaped mental patient for a sailor. So I got a general discharge under honorable conditions. And after just didn't quite fulfill my whole tour of duty, and I was out on the streets. I went to Los Angeles, and I lived on the streets of L.A. And I learned to lie, cheat, and steal, to hustle. I learned about sleeping in all-night theaters. You get stuck downtown, and getting down to L.A. downtown when you have nothing is really tough. And I'd call my mom, and I could drive her like a brand new Cadillac. And if I could Mom, just send me some money to get the bus. I'll get out of here. I'll come home. I'm going to straighten up. I'm going to get a job. And she believed me, and she'd send me money, and I believed me. And I remember going to the Western Union and getting money and heading for that bus station, just so grateful I'm getting out of here finally. And I'd pass a bar, and I'd go in and I'd have a drink. And I'd come out 3 or 4 in the morning, and I'm broke. Eventually, I got out of L.A. and went back to West Texas. My dad had an electrical company. I tried to work for him, but I'm an angry, entitled drunk. So he fires me, and I wind up hanging out with some people that didn't have jobs. But they had cars, they had money. They stole out of the oil fields. They carried guns, and they drank Crown Royal. And to me, they looked very successful. And they were looking for help, and I interviewed for the job. And pretty soon, I'm with them, and I'm ripping and running, and I have a gun. I have I drank Crown Royal. I got a car. I got a crazy girlfriend. Life is good. Lasted about 6 months, and the Texas Rangers came in and arrested everyone. Everybody went to prison but me. And I got probation. And I mean, while I sat in that jail, I said, this is it. I am done. I'm turning my life around. I'm going to go get baptized. Hell, I've been baptized so many times, but this time I practically learned to swim in a baptismal. And I'm always doing something to, I get drunk and show up at some counselor's house or something. And, it's alcoholism. It's just everything's a blur. Everything's a mess. You don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to get through all this. I had a job that lasted 3 weeks. I was pumping gas, and I just couldn't hang. And, I remember looking at that guy I was pumping gas for him, and I just getting irritated and thinking, you can pump your own damn gas. And I left the nozzle running in his car, and I went to the cash register and made a cash advance. Went across the street to the bar, and I took a drink, and when I came to, I was 300 miles away in Dallas. And I did what I always do. I just dig a deeper hole. I met more guys that were like the ones I'd known before, and pretty soon I've got my dad and business is staked out, my folks home. I have my picture up in places you don't want it, and my mom is humiliated. My dad, you ask my dad about me, I would have been the apple of his eye, and they'd say, where's Danny? And he'd say, Danny who? And turn around and walk off. My mother was, she'd just keep her head down. You ask my mom about me, and she just, she didn't know what to say. These are both salt of the earth, great people. But I got full-blown alcoholism, and it is absolutely killing my parents. And my brothers, at one time when I was younger, I had been the apple of their eye. I had been their protector. And now they're scared to death of me, and they're ashamed of me. And, and I'm that guy. And they caught me, and I got 13 5-year sentences, and I was sent off to the Texas Department of Corrections in the 60s. And what I can tell you about doing time in Texas in the 60s, it's very time-consuming. And, while I'm there, I write my mother letters, and I'm serious. I finally have woke up. This is it. I get it. I'm out here beating on the ground with a hoe, pulling cotton. I'm in a pretty tough deal, and I put myself here, but I understand now what the problem is. I'm going to have to straighten up and get good. And my mom knows I'm serious, and I believe I'm serious. And when she come to get me, it was just, it was the greatest day. I get out, and I already promised myself I'm never drinking whiskey again, except on special occasions. And it turns out getting out of prison is a very special occasion. And I got out, I got a half pint of whiskey, and we're riding back. It's a 400-mile ride back from Huntsville to Midland, Odessa. And I'm in that car. My mom's in a good mood. I'm in a good mood. We don't know anything about alcoholism. We don't know that she's riding with one raging alcoholic. And I took a couple of pops off that, hit that sweet spot. Everywhere we stop, I get out. I want to talk to people. My life's going to be good. My mom told me on that trip, she said, son, what you need is a wife, a kid, a car, a bank account, a job in the house. You'll be okay. So when I got to Midland, I went looking for a woman that had kids, a bank account, a job in the car. and I found her. And my mother was wrong. That was the worst 2 weeks of my life. I had married her, and I left, and I'm hanging out down at a bar, and another girl comes in. And she's crying. She's very pretty, and I'm a very compassionate man. I go over to talk to her, and we sit and drink, and I find out that she's pregnant, and she can't go home as an unwed mother. Her folks were, it's not going to happen. And so we hatched a plan that the way we'd solve that is that she and I would get married, and we could both go to her home. And so we went over and got a license, and in Texas, they want you to wait 3 days because they want to be sure you're in love. And so we got a license, And we went back to our bar and we partied. You know, everybody, we're all celebrating our, you know, our nuptials. And so we just drank and party. And when it's time to go get married, we're knee walking drunk. We go back over to the courthouse. I don't know why he married us, but he did. And came out, and I went straight to a payphone and called my mother to collect. And I said, Mom, I'm married. And she said, I know. I said, I don't know how you could. I just did it. And she said, oh, my God, Danny, you have a wife. And I was like, details. I'm always getting tripped up with details. I'm a big picture guy. So we go on our honeymoon. And we take that long trip on a Greyhound bus, drinking and going to McAllister, Oklahoma, where I was met by my new father-in-law, who was in a chauffeur-driven limousine. And I want to encourage you to get to know your family, your new family, or your one you're marrying into, before you say I do. Because it turns out that I had married the warden of McAllister State Penitentiary's daughter. So I was very uncomfortable in that relationship. So I absconded, which means to move in a secret way. You know, and I get back to West Texas, and my mom arranged a divorce and an annulment. And you know, now I'm in love, but I don't know who with. And you know, a girl walks in, and this is one of those love affairs. I mean, the moment we saw each other, we were so deeply in love, we were going to have to be buried together. I mean, we loved each other. You don't usually fall in love that deep, that hard, until you get to a treatment center. But true. But Mary and I were quite a pair. We lasted 3 years, and I became increasingly more psychotic and dangerous to be around. And I was a very violent man, and she had to leave me in order to save herself. And while she was gone, she was killed in a car wreck. And I didn't know what to do with that. I felt terrible for me. I didn't think about the fact that she was 26 years old and she just lost her life. I didn't think about her family. I didn't think about anything. Why did this happen to me? Everything happened to me. And I got a gun and a bottle of whiskey and I went on a crime spree and got 10 years, and I'm sent back to the penitentiary. And this time, after a little while, I decided my problem is I don't have an education. So I started studying. I only had a 10th grade education, and so I started studying. I went to college. I studied philosophy. I took up yoga. I wouldn't hang out with anybody. I wrote long letters to my mother. She believed them, and so did I. And I got out, and she came to get me. I went all the way home. Nothing spectacular happened. I get back to West Texas, and I don't want to go out. I just stay home. I mean, my dad finally asked my mother, said, "What's wrong with him? He won't even go out to, go to the store." Well, I don't know how to tell him I'm afraid, because every time I go out, everything really goes to hell in a handbasket. I know I'm going to take a drink. I hadn't had a drink in a long time, but I knew that it wasn't going to turn out well. And sure enough, I got to thinking about it. What I needed to do was get a place of my own, and I needed a wife. So I went out looking for her, and I found her. She was dancing on top of a table. And I knew that was my wife at the moment I saw her. Yeah. And she's the one that dropped me off at Alcoholics Anonymous. I was in Austin maybe half a year, somewhere in there, and drinking and going to AA and drinking and going to AA and wishing things would be different, but they weren't, and I wasn't ever going to make it. And I know I'm going to eventually get arrested. I'm going to have to serve out the rest of that time. I'm hiding from everybody, and I live in that old beat-up car. And I went to a meeting. I hated everybody in the meeting, just the same old people saying the same stupid stuff over and over again. And I got up and stormed out, and I went and bought a 6-pack of beer, and I went on a drunk. I came to about 7 days later in the back seat of that old car, and I was puking blood and bile. And I had friends that nobody else could see. And I do remember having a moment of clarity, and I said, God, I'll do anything if I could just get sober. And apparently I was able to make a call because two guys come to get me. And a guy named John and a young guy, and they come to get me, and they're riding back. And I just looked at him and I said, John, what am I going to do? He said, Daddy, if you don't drink, you won't get drunk. I said, well, how do you do that? He said, well, don't drink right now. And then when it's right now again, don't drink then either. And that kid said, yeah, and pretty soon you'll have like a minute. And John said, don't pay any attention to him. He said, in Alcoholics Anonymous, minutes become hours. They become days, weeks, months, years. You join us in this thing we do, and you'll find yourself a sober, self-respecting member of Alcoholics Anonymous with a host of friends and a relationship with the power that runs this universe. And I'm telling you, drunk in that car on the way back to the club, I was smitten with a magnificent obsession to be sober, to be like you. I wanted it more than anything else in the world, and it's not changed from that moment to right now. And I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. I started coming in early. I'd park that old car out in that parking lot, and I'd help set up in the morning. And I quit making fun of those old men, and when they were talking, I'd get close and listen. And when they had meetings, I didn't say anything. I didn't steal out of the basket. I didn't have anything to do with the girls. I just wanted to sit here with you. And one day an old man that I really admired came up and gave me a shoebox full of cassettes and a battery-powered cassette player. And I'd ride around in that old car, and I'd listen to those talks. And I would laugh and cry, but I'm not alcoholic. I'm not drinking, and I love you, and I want to be with you. But I'm not like that. I'm a thief. I'm a gangster. Not a very good one, but I am one. I'm escaped mental patient. I'm a failure in everything I do. You just drank too much. And I'm riding around, and I don't even know who it was, but he said, let go and let God. And I thought, let go and let God do what? And I thought, John Henry will know. And I drove to the club, and there he was standing outside he had bib overalls on, and he had a little cup of coffee just before the meeting, standing outside waxing eloquent to whomever would listen. And I saw him, I was standing there, and I said, John Henry, I'm alcoholic. He said, yeah, you are. He said, now come on in this house. And we went in that back room and we sat down, and he told me about himself. And John he had a life that was every bit as bad as mine had been. And here he was, well respected, living a great life. And it made me think maybe I could have this too. And he had me get on my knees right then and say the third step prayer. And I was very embarrassed. It seemed like he said, I want you to get on your knees. I said, why do I have to get on my knees? He said, because I told you to. He said, you do everything Danny tells you to do. Now you're going to do a few things that we tell you to do. And I just said, okay. I didn't know that was the beginning of a surrender, but I said, okay. And I got on my knees and I said that prayer. And 2 days later, I locked myself in a Motel 6, and I just started writing. I wrote an inventory, and it was long, it was detailed. Part of it was just a gigantic confession, and part of it was the kind of inventory that you guys had suggested I do to see who's behind all this and why. But most of my first inventory was just a gigantic, honest confession. And when I went to take my fifth step, I couldn't find John. And so I went to her. There was an old woman that I'd always liked to listen to. She was an old Jewish gal that was just always laughing at everything and had been around for a long time. And I went to her house and I said, Glenda, would you hear my inventory? And she said, honey, somebody's going to have to, or you're going to die. And I sat down in there and I spent like 5 hours, and I just poured my heart out. And when it was over, she said, honey, what's evolved here is a liar, a cheat, a thief, and one of the most prideful, self-centered people I've ever met. And if you want to continue down this path, you don't need any help. But if you want to be different, I want you to go down to Town Lake. I want you to think about what you've just shared with me. I want you to invite God to run your life, to get Danny out of his life. I headed down to Town Lake, and when I got down there, as soon as I got there, I opened that car door, and I just felt this power wash over me and through me, and I felt free, and I felt the presence of God, and it stayed with me for hours. Man, I mean, I'm lit up. I'm amazed before I'm halfway through, and I'm going to go to the club, and I'm going to start chairing every meeting, and and those old timers that have lost their fire, I'm going to light them right back up, and I'm excited. I'm turned on. I'm in AA. What you're looking for through the steps, I found at the end of the fifth step. That's a big problem. I had a spiritual experience, and I experienced what I believe to be a presence of God in the universe. And I thought that's all you were looking for. I thought that's what you did the steps for, just so you could have that experience. So I made up my mind, I'm not going any further in these steps. I'm going to help people. I'm going to live underground in AA. And I'm the happiest I've ever been. And man, I'm going to tell you, I'm the 12-stepping fool. I'm picking up people. I'm bringing them to the message. I'm happy as I've ever been. But about 6 months into it, I started to have a meltdown. And I've got that, I got to go again. That my foot's patting and I'm not okay. And I got to go. And I called John Henry. I said, John Henry, I can't do this. I've got to go. And he said, why don't you meet me at the club first? I said, all right. And I met him at the club, and he said, Danny, what's standing between you and that God that you experienced are the things on your 8-step list. I said, well, there's some things I didn't tell you. And he said, well, what are they? I said, well, one, I live in a stolen car. He said, that's a problem. And the other is in the summer of 1980 in San Angelo, Texas, there was a bank robbery. And they've been looking for me. They've been to my folks' house, my parole officer. There's bulletins out for me. And that's my MO. That's what I do. And I was in that area. I'm a blackout drinker. I have no memory of this whatsoever. And he said, well, son, you've got to go in and clean that up. I said, oh, no. I said, no, that's not happening. He said, you told me when I started this with you that you were willing to go to any length to have this gift. I said, that is theory. This is serious. They will lock me up for the rest of my life. He said, well, get another sponsor, son, because you will not make it with that. And I went out and sat in that car, and I just looked up and I said, God, I want to do it, but I'm too afraid. And I just had this epiphany that 4 walls do not make a prison. Prison is something you carry around on the inside. And I had the keys to the kingdom. I could run like I always do, or I could follow your example. And so the next day, I parked that car a long ways from the police department, and I went in and I told them who I was, and they sent me up to the robbery department. And I told that guy, I said, I'm here, And he got this VHS tape and put it in and played it. And there's a tall, skinny guy going from till to till. It's grainy, but it's pretty close, And I'm sitting there looking at it, and I'm thinking, I'm in so much trouble. I wonder what I did with the money. And he turned around and looked at me. I told him all about my good work in AA, And he turned around and looked at me, and he said, the guy I'm looking for wouldn't walk in here. He said, the guy I'm looking for is out there. And he said, we'll find him. But you need to get your skinny butt back to AA, and maybe you can do something about the mess you've created. Now get out of here. I said, I'm in AA forever. I am no longer afraid of making amends. I'll make yours. I mean, I'm ready. I'm ready to roll. And I begin the journey in Alcoholics Anonymous, where my life just has been, it's been amazing, in spite of me. And I tried to make amends to my dad. And my dad, when I went to see him, it just a couple of minutes, he said, "Son, I'm happy for you. Let's just get on with our lives." He didn't want to talk about it. He just wanted to sweep it under the rug. To heck, let's just leave it as is. And so there was still that gulf between us. and I wanted the relationship back, and I would come to you, and I would say, how do I get it back? How do I make it right? And you said, you continue to be a good son. You continue to show up at family functions. You write letters. You make calls regularly. And by the way, your parents are through raising you. You quit asking them for money or telling them how terrible your life is. I said, well, what if my life is terrible at the moment? Should I lie? And John Henry said, son, in your case, if you ain't drinking, your life's not terrible. And so I quit doing that. One day my mom called me and said, you know, your dad and I feel like we could die and go on because we think you could take care of yourself. And I didn't know that that's the kind of burden that I'd put on people. 20 years passed, and my dad and I are still, strangers really. I came home from Dallas, Texas, and I spent the night in their house, went to the meeting where I'd gotten sober. And I came back in my mom's house, and she's waiting up for me like she always does. When I walked in, I could see that he was in bed. And I said, Mom, is he asleep? And she said, he's just pretending to be. And I walked back into his old bedroom, and I looked down, and he's not this big, strong guy anymore. Time had worn him down, and, he's just this little old bald-headed man. And on an impulse, I leaned down and kissed him on his bald head and said, I love you. And before I could pull away, he pulled my head to his bare chest, and he patted my head, and he said, I didn't know what to do, boy. I said, me neither, Pop. He said, those people in AA, I hope you'll always remember to tell them how much we appreciate what you've done for our family. And I said, I always do. And things changed so much then because, he was in a retirement center then, him and my mom. He was the champion Wii bowler. You remember that little Wii thing? Dude, he couldn't walk good, but he could bowl 300 just flicking his wrist. And I knew we were tight because when I come to visit him, he'd bought me a remote. I was living in Houston, and I was married, and life is good. And I went to a meeting. I got a call, and my brother called and said, if you want to see your dad alive, you better come now. And I said, I can't come. I can't do that. It's too raw. And I went in and I saw a guy that I know, and I told him, I said, man, I just don't have it in me to go watch him die. And he said, son, you can't run your life now either. You get in the car, go to the airport, and when you get there, you call us. We'll be there with you. We'll be there with you. We'll pray for you. We'll show up for you. We'll make sure that your family has what they need. But you go. And I went, and I was in that room with him, and my brother and my mother, and my dad was dying, and I'm trying to help him up to exercise him, and he can't get up anymore. And the doctor said, leave him alone, he's dying. And my dad looked at me and said, well, you're getting paid back for some of that hell you put me through. I said, geez, Dad, you're going to have to live to be 200 for us to get even. He said, there's nothing to get even about. I couldn't be prouder. And we were around his bed. He lay back, and his jaw went slack, and you could see that breath going. His eyes just were glassy, and I just, that was the end of it. I looked, my mom is right there. They've been together for 66 years at this time, since the time she was 14. And she looked at him. I said, Mom, he's dead. And she said, Dan, what are you staring at? And all of a sudden, his eyes got a light in them. He raised up a little bit, and he looked at her, and he said, I see a dove. And he lay back and died. I don't know what that was, but it gave me great comfort. And it was an amazing thing that you got. Without you, I wouldn't have shown up. But I was there. My mom needed me. My brothers needed me. My mom lived another 4 years. And she was, by the way, a big Al-Anon. If you were wondering whether or not I made amends to her, she didn't let me out of her sight. She made me make them. That's one of the reasons I love Larcene. My mother was cut just like that. And my dad was like like Butch, too. But my mom died before I could come. But ever since my dad died at 10 o'clock every morning, there are some exceptions, but 90% of the time, 10 o'clock in the morning, I call my mom. And we have a little talk. And so when I go to her memorial in that treatment, in that retirement center, I go in there, and my brothers are already there. And there's ladies that know my family, they're all there. And I walk in, and two little ladies looked up, and they saw me, and they said, "You're the one." And I said, "Well, I'm the one what?" I figured I'm in trouble. They said, "You're the one that calls at 10 every day." I said, "Yes, ma'am." He said, "She would just shoo us out of her room, say, 'That's my boy calling.'" And my brother's standing there, and he said, "Great. We have worked our butt off taking care of her. You call once a day for 10 minutes every day, and you come home and everybody fawns over you." I said, "I know, it's kind of a superpower I have. How to steal the limelight, that's me." I have a great relationship with my family. I sponsor guys, and of course, as you can see, I get up and talk way too much. And I told this earlier because it's true. I was in Tulsa. I'm much more emotional now. Up until 2020, when I had a heart attack, when I came out of that hospital, I've got very emotional very easy. And I would tell you when I start my talk, say, "Listen, I have a medical condition. I'm not a weakling. This is not the way I really am. I have a medical condition. I had a heart attack." The ER doctor told me she was in AA. She came up to me and she said, "The reason you get emotional now is your heart was broken and we fixed it." And that's what you did. My heart was broken, and you put it together. You've given me a life that I'm not a young man, but I've got these great dogs. I've got this big house with a swimming pool. I got motorcycles. I got a boat. And it's clean. I've never put it in the water. I just have it, and because it means a lot when you come over and I have the same stuff you do. I can sit out in my backyard and literally be alone and at perfect peace, just like me, God, my old dogs, and I think about my life that you've given me. I want to live a lot longer. Don't get me wrong. Heaven's my home, but I ain't homesick. But you guys have kept me so busy listening to inventory, listening to guys and thinking, "Geez, I'm telling you, Guy, I know exactly how you feel because that's the way I was." And giving you a benefit of my experience and having the privilege of being a part of your lives means everything to me. I'm trying to think of a really cool story like Ed's, but I don't have one. Ed, you will win with the greatest closing. I just know this. I love you. I love Alcoholics Anonymous from the bottom of my heart. God bless you and thank you.